All right, well, welcome back to Photo Tips. And today I want to talk to you about the texture slider in Adobe Camera Raw and Adobe Lightroom, kind of how it works and some other tools you're going to use at the same time. So let me show you an image here on my screen. And this particular image is from the FDR Memorial in Washington, D.C. And this is actually a sculpture that's there, and he was supported disabilities and things like that. So you see the braille and things like that that was part of his legacy. So let me just go ahead and zoom into 100% here. This is a film scan, so you may see a little bit of grain in here. But, you know, pretty sharp image. I think it looks pretty good as is, but I want to fool around here. If we go over to the right side of the image, you'll see the texture slider. And of course, I can slide it this way, and not a whole much is going to happen because this image is already sharpened and things like that because it's a film scan. But you can see as I start sliding it, you know, the details start to disappear. In fact, if we go into 100% here, let's take a look. It looks kind of muddy, not something you'd want to do. But let's go ahead and reset it back to 0 and we'll start pulling it up. As you start pulling it up here, you'll notice that it's sharper and sharper, but it is different from it's just increasing the sharpness of the image. Now that's quite a bit, so keep that in mind. I'm going to go over to sharpness here, and I'll show you the difference. We got sharpening set to 0 because this is just a film scan. You know, it's starting to get sharper, and we're looking at not 100%, but it's not necessarily the same effect. So it definitely does different things than the sharpening tool, the texture tool that is, that we're using now. So let's go ahead and zoom into 100%, and I'll just make a quick edit here. You know, we can do that. And one other thing I want to show you as well is this clarity right here, which increases a little bit of the contrast and the shadows and things like that. So we can go ahead and slide that up, and it'll make it even pop a little bit more. Okay, so I'm not going to probably do too much here, and we can also, you know, we can even do dehaze. There's a reason all these tools are together is because they kind of, you know, help them do the same thing. Almost like the dehaze is kind of like a modified version of clarity, I think, but it does actually dehaze in a way skies and backgrounds that have been affected by haze. But I'm not going to fool around with that for this image. So I'm going to say let's keep it right there for that, and then I want to show you a different image that I think we can really play with, and we can decide what is the right settings versus, you know, what's the wrong. This one can do so many things. But this one I'm going to go ahead and save as more of a traditional image. I just wanted to show that to you before we got into the real meat here of everything. So I'll go ahead and save that out so we can reference that later on there. Okay, so this is the one that I really wanted to go into, and if you watched earlier in the week, and I'll throw a card up as well here on the screen that you can click on, we did a series on fine art photography, and this I don't believe was actually shown, but it's a similar idea. This is actually of the Chattahoochee River, and we introduced a little bit of camera blur there, so it was actually really, really cool. So let's see what we can do to this image. Obviously it is blurry right now, and that was the intent it was supposed to be done, so a little experiment fine art photography thing. Check out that video, it's really cool. So, you know, from a fine art perspective, we're not quite there yet. Maybe we have some interest up here. This is actually some water and some branches mixed together, and obviously we have a branch right there, but it looks like, you know, reasonably well exposed, no issues we're going to have. So I think what I'm going to do, let's go down to our texture slider, and we'll just start to increase the texture. And you can see as I do that, these branches, this water here, all this is going to start to pop out just a little bit more. And one reason I decided to use this image is because there's just so much we can do here, and there's, you know, not necessarily a right or a wrong way. So I really wanted to show you what we can do. Okay, so that's done quite a bit there. Now let's go ahead and do clarity again, increasing that contrast there in the shadows and highlights. And we can, you know, we can do quite a bit here. Now, I don't want to do too much more than that. I'm starting to go a little bit too far. So let's go ahead and say, you know, that dehaze, I mentioned that previously, that it's kind of a more dramatic effect than clarity. Let's see what happens as I start to do that. As you can see, it's almost like the shadows just start to darken. And I don't dare to do too much of that. Okay, and I think one other thing is, as you notice this, the image just starts to get kind of the contrast just starts increasing, but in different areas, the highlights, the shadows, the textures, what have you. That's kind of what these tools do. So I'm starting to like where I'm going there. Let me go ahead. I want to make what's happened. We used to kind of have a nice light glow right here, and that's kind of disappeared as we use the tool. So I'll go ahead and increase some highlights there, make that glow. I might even go a little bit more in the whites, which is even a more dramatic increase than using the highlight slider. And I'll say, maybe about right there. And you know what? I know we're talking about highlights and shadows, but I just want to show you what happens and what affects the color as we do it. Let's go into our HSL adjustments, our hue, saturation, luminance. And this is kind of a more orange, reddish tone right here from this branch that was on the side there. So I want to go ahead, I want to brighten that up a little bit, which I guess we're going to have to do quite a bit. Maybe there's some yellow in there. Let me see if red does much. And a little bit there. I may go back into my regular settings and increase the, bring out some detail in the shadow there. There we go. I think that works for us. Let's go into saturation and say, let's go ahead and increase, get a little bit more. And I may go back into my regular settings and say, let's go ahead and make it a little bit warmer, increase my color temperature just a little bit there. Okay. So I'm liking that. Now this was let me fix this here. We had a little dust spot there on the sensor. That's no fun. As you can see, we had some more. This is a super small aperture, so if you have dust on your sensor, it definitely shows up. Okay, so I think that is definitely something we can work with. I may go into my effects tab. We might add a post-crop vignette, which we haven't cropped at all, but this just darkens the corners a little bit there. And I may move my midpoint out so I keep it brighter up until the edge a little bit more there. Okay, so that's not too bad. And I'm probably doing too much. There we go. Okay, now I want to zoom into 100% because when you use this texture tab and those others that are associated with it, it does oftentimes make it a little bit more noisy. So let's go ahead in here and see what happens if we can change this here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. As you can see, we got a little bit of noise. In fact, I'll even show you. If we start to do this more, and there is bow in the background there, you can see that our noise and things like that definitely starts to increase there. So we want to go ahead and work on that. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'm going to go over to my tab right here, which is the detail tab where we have sharpening. And we can go ahead and add some noise reduction there. And especially since this is a color image, there might be some color noise as well. So I can go ahead and slide that. Color noise is when you see those little specks of, red, blue, and green in an image in the dark shadows. It kind of looks muddy, looks a little weird. So there's tools in Lightroom and Adobe Camera that allow us to fix that. So I did increase that dehaze just to show you the, the effects, but I think I may back off a little bit there. It's probably a little bit too much. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and stick with that. And I will go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and save out this image. And I'm going to take the cat away from the laptop because what she likes to do is get all over and slobber. And we don't want to do that with our expensive laptop. So we'll go ahead and get her out of the way. I'll go ahead and save this here. And we'll say this is the after. We have the before already saved. Save that out. I'll hit done. And let's go back into Adobe Bridge and take a look. So I want to start first with that first image we took, which is the FDR memorial shot, more of a conventional image, and you can see the little subtle tweaks we did there with the texture tab. So let's go ahead and pull that up. Alrighty, there we go. And it is a perfectly decent image. I really like the way this looks. Honestly, this was taken probably in 2006, and I have not done too many edits to it. So today is the first one in many, many years. So let's see how it looks. And we can toggle back and forth a little bit here. There's the original again. And there is the after. It's a matter of, zooming into 100% there. It's just a matter of perspective and a matter of taste. What do you like? To be honest, I might like the original a little bit more, but you may have a different opinion. So there's that. Let's go in here and take a look at that other image. Again, this is more of our fine art image that we looked at here. And you got that branch and the river there in the background with the waves. So that is the original. And then we played around with our texture sliders and things like that. I did a few other edits, made it a little bit brighter in some areas, darker in others. And we got this result. Again, not everyone's cup of tea, but I think it shows that texture tab quite well and the things you can do with it there. So that is that right there. So let me know what you think. Do you like the texture tab? Do you like the results? Do you have some other things you'd like to see? Just let me know. So on behalf of Nala and I here, who is now calmed down, I do appreciate you watching Photo Tips, and you have a good one. Bye-bye.